Hola, Gavin.
Hi, Louis.
I'm reporting live from the border, so I'm speaking the tongue of my people. Okay, I'm getting the flavor.
I was nervous because I know Spanish a little bit, but I shouldn't do it because I am
Take
white.
a risk.
Oh,
Take a risk.
okay, that was. Come on. Also, it's literally the word hola. I think.
I know, but I want to be sensitive.
Right. We're sensitive gals here. We're sensitive gals
truly
here.
are.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject, such as an actor, an actress, a director, or a mini-genre, and we take 2 weeks and we fill our brains full of so much information it's about to burst, and then we shoot it all back out at you and tell you what we like and what we don't like.
Gavin, do we burst all over our listeners?
I'm about to burst.
I'm about to bust. Oh, my goodness. We do our best. We watch as much as we can in 2 weeks, and then we have some fun. We mix it up, and sometimes we bring some friends along for the ride.
Please welcome to the stage. Today we have with us the wonderful, the amazing, I'm trying to think of other adjectives. There's effervescent. Is that too much?
Sprightly.
Translucent.
Translucent. Mitchell Beaupre.
Hello.
I did do that right? Because I've listened to you on other podcasts and they've gotten it wrong, and I'm like, I will not fall into this trap.
Yeah, close enough, I think.
Oh, close enough. Damn it. Damn it.
Mitchell, now correct me if I'm wrong. You are a little movie baron over at Letterboxd. So I'm like...
That's my job title, is movie baron.
Movie baron. Okay. I just watched Miss Julie. There's a baron involved. I'm in the headspace.
Were you promoted from Film Czar?
Yes, yeah. Film Czar didn't pay as well, so, I got the slot in for movie baron. I appreciate the upgrade. It's a better apartment, just better lifestyle all around.
I only bring it up because I'm like, okay, we're around movie royalty, someone who knows their shit. Louis, get your shit together.
I can delete Letterboxd accounts if this goes poorly.
Gavin found shaking.
There is a very dormant Mixed Reviews Letterboxd account that needs updating at some point, so please don't delete that one. But you are a Renaissance person. You're a writer. You are been on 1 billion podcasts, which I actually said right before we started recording, and I'm just stealing from myself. Steal from the best.
Okay.
And
never afraid to reference or not reference.
Exactly. And so what can't you do? Let's start there.
Run for long distances.
That's a hard one.
I would say any physical exertion for more than about 10-15 seconds.
Sure.
It gets tough. It's why I'm a writer.
There you go. Before we get into why Mitchell has collected us here today, on this episode, we have a little bit of old business. Gavin, I believe you have a review for us?
I do. So we got one more new review, as I've been saying over the last, 1 billion episodes. If our listeners could go to Apple Podcasts, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, and leave us a 5-star rating and write us a little review, that would be wonderful. I'm trying to get us to 100 reviews by the end of 2022, because we're a podcast that's been around for 5 years, and I know people that have podcasts for 3 weeks that get thousands of reviews. So I'm just really trying, guys.
We gotta release.
Fuck you, Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
We gotta release the dick pics.
Wow, I had a follow up to Mitchell's joke, none to Louis, but we did.
Let's rewind. Fine.
We did get a new review entitled "Cured My Depression." It is from Restless Mal, and it is just the 100 emoji.
Wow,
that's literally all you have to do. If you want to review us on Apple Podcasts, drop by, leave a little emoji, write a little word. If you just want to write Julia Roberts, we're going to get to it someday. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be 2 episodes, but we're going to get to it. But yeah, please do leave us a rating and review, and we would love that because It lets other people get us.
Mao, I'm happy to be at service in your quest to mental health. Thank you, everyone, for listening and leaving us those wonderful ratings and reviews. On our last episode, we talked about the tip spot queen herself, Miss Joan Cusack, and had a ball doing that episode. We asked you guys to go online and vote for your favorite movie, and here are the results. Tied in last place is In and Out and Other. So we did have some people leaving some comments about broadcast news, some Toy Story, So
we got a good selection of other. I actually got one person extolling their love for toys, and I was like, "Yes, my people."
You were like, "Look at my collection." Someone also mentioned high fidelity, so all good things. And then Working Girl came in at second place with 22%, and the top dog that me and Gavin both picked, Addams Family, coming in at 56%.
Gasp!
I know, it's just undeniable, but we love them all. Mitchell, do you have any fave Joan Cusack movies?
Yeah, I voted for Working Girl in the poll because I didn't want to waste a vote on other, but I think that ultimately my favorite is probably School of Rock.
Okay,
I really love her in School of Rock.
She's
as the
good.
principal. She's so good. She's like super sexy in it, which is like rad. She doesn't get to do that a lot. I honestly love that you guys just did an episode on her in general because she is like really underrated, which makes no sense at this point. She should be properly rated. But yeah,
it's really bonkers because she is underrated and yet still has somehow had 2 Academy Award nominations.
Yeah, right.
But like not a name that comes to people's minds, not like at the forefront. And that's sort of what I love about doing this show is that, well, first of all, that we can do whatever we want, and that's we are literally beholden to no one. But that we get to do such a wide variety of things, whether it's a weird genre or, a character actor who doesn't get as much love. Like Louis was saying at the beginning of that last episode, I was scared it was going to be like a Stanley Tucci because that was really our first foray into character actors. And I mean, a little bit was, but it was also like, I don't know, she gives so much depth even in like
it's incredible
10
what
minutes.
she's able to deliver. She has so much energy and like physicality that doesn't matter. She's that girl in the neck brace, and it's like, God, I'll remember that forever.
Yeah, I was looking through like kind of her filmography when you guys did the episode, and I remembered when she did the series finale of The Office, it's like she's in just the one episode, I just remember that every single time I watch the episode, she makes me cry, and like literally her like immediate first scene as like Aaron's mom coming back to like reunite with her, and it's like, yeah, she can just come in for a second and completely like steal it, make you fully believe a character.
Yeah, totally. Well, Joan, we love that episode. We love you. But let's move on to why we're here today. Mitchell, as our guest, why don't you tell everyone what we're talking about today?
Sure. So today we will be talking about the one and only Colin Farrell, somehow still never nominated for an Academy Award.
I know.
I've been saying that for 3 days now.
It makes no sense.
What made you think of him as someone for us to cover?
Yeah, he's one of, I think, the best working actors right now. So that's like why he immediately came to mind. But why I wanted him over like anybody else, I gave Gavin, I think, like a list of like 5 different people that I thought would be good, and I said Colin Farrell number 1, though, if you guys were into that as an idea. I think that he's somebody who has a lot of films that definitely vary the range of good to bad, as we'll discuss, but as Gavin and I were kind of talking earlier in DMs, like even the bad ones are not like chores to get through, which, especially as you guys I'm sure know, doing a show like this, like there are actors who you think like, oh, this is one of the best actors of all time, like I'm not gonna get bored of any of these movies, and then you get like a week into it and it's just like film after film after film that you're struggling to get through. I feel like Colin Farrell doesn't really have too many of those, maybe 1 or 2, but usually like the bad ones are still like super watchable, and like he's generally pretty good in them. There's probably only a couple bad performances of his.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, as I was watching A Home at the End of the World today, I was like, just try and describe Colin Farrell without saying like brooding. He is just the master brooder, just so charming, and has sexual chemistry with like a lamp. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And he came up during the aughts where everyone just wanted like the hot white leading man to be hot and white, and he like did that for a little while, but I'm so happy that he's been able to reach out and do weird fucking, like, literally such weird movies where I'm like, and he delivers. It's great.
Yeah.
And the thing is we're going to talk about his age in a second, but I think that's another important thing to really keep in mind as we're talking through this episode. He's really only been famous for 20 years. 20 years. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not like a massive, but it feels like he's been there all along because he was such an instant skyrocket into the fame monster, if you will. Thank you, Gaga.
Thank you, Gaga.
And I think what's also interesting is because he is so young, he's somebody you can sort of chart the way that he gets better over time, which is not to say that there's always, he is good in some of the earlier stuff. I don't want to take away from that, but he got thrust into some stuff early that I'm just like, oof, boy, you were not ready for this.
It was the like Hollywood first millennial celebrity. I mean, I remember being like a teen and being like, there are like naked pictures of Colin Farrell out there. Like he was the bad boy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
definitely.
It was drinking, it was drugs, it was partying, it was
Britney
having
Spears.
sex with
Britney Spears. Crazy.
On the opposite end, so Britney Spears, Elizabeth Taylor. These are the women he was dating. Like,
honey, she came straight from Ireland and said, "Who's ready to fuck?" Okay, like,
exactly.
He said, "Hey, I got a SWAT premiere to go to."
Who's available tonight? Yeah, so he's like a really interesting person to do a dissection on because it's almost like, I don't know, do we have celebrities like that anymore? Because we also we have a really bad sort of celebrity problem here in the US and a really bad paparazzi problem and that sort of situation, but it's not anywhere near the level it was when he got his start.
Yeah.
And so is he sort of the last of that tabloid celebrity, like the tail end of that tabloid celebrity that was sort of made in that era and now is like beyond it?
right.
Yeah, I definitely think because it was like around that same time period of like the Ben and J-Lo stuff, but Ben was already like well established from the like 90s stuff going into it. So yeah, Colin does seem like, especially as like a male star, kind of that last segment of people who were born into the spotlight from paparazzi and like that whole tabloid culture where your understanding of who they are comes from that. So like growing up, I was born in 1990, so like that.
Shut up, you baby.
That sort of period of like 2002 to 2006 where he was in like the tabloid and all over the news cycle like that was how I saw Colin Farrell, and like how I got introduced to him was seeing him as the like train wreck kind of bad boy.
Right. And also it's weird, I was just thinking right now, like he was one of the rare male stars that was like sexualized, that wasn't very common. It was like, oh, he's a drinker, partier, bad boy, but like it was also like, oh, he looks very hot and we want to see him without a shirt on all the time. And it that's what he was. I don't know. It's weird. We don't get a lot of sexualized celebrities, especially from that era of like super macho nonsense. But I digress. We will get into all this and more. Gavin, why don't we go back into the rewind?
Colin James Farrell was born May 31st, 1976. He is 46 years old, as I mentioned. He was born in Castleknock, which is a suburb of Dublin. His mother was Rita, and his father was Eamon Farrell. His father played football for the Shamrock Rovers FC and ran a health food shop. And it's funny because I've watched interviews with him where he like starts off by being like, oh yeah, culture was all around. It was music and storytelling, just the way that Americans picture Ireland. And he's like, none of that is true.
My father was an athlete, was a professional footballer, soccer player. And so that was really the only particular kind of structure I remember in my relationship between he and I, and my parents came from working class stock, which doesn't of course exclude them from having an interest in the arts, but for whatever reason there was no songs, there was no stories, there was no trips to the theatre. The cinema was once in every blue moon, but I kind of had a love for film from a very early age, and I just found it very affecting from a very early age.
He ends up being educated at the St. Brigid's National School, followed by an exclusive all-boys private school, Castleknock College, and then Gormanston College in County Meath, all very Irish.
Right. Castleknock sounds very fake, let me say that.
Yeah, exactly. I now want to just be like, oh yeah, I'm from Castleknock. Just see what people do.
Castleknock?
Have you not? It's in upstate New York. And Yeah, during this time, his older brother is starting to take dance classes from this woman that he's just met that has emigrated from the US. She's a line dancer, and he decides to pick up line dancing for himself. She teaches him things, and he starts teaching line dancing, cowboy hat, cowboy boots. He's a dancer. He's in a club. He said he had on a white shirt and he was on some other stuff.
Okay.
And the producer of the boy band Boyzone spots him.
World famous Boyzone, of course. Yes,
Boyzone. Of course. Our British listeners know who Boyzone is. And they're like, hey, we're doing an open audition. Would you like to come audition?
I remember very clearly, he said, we're going to have open auditions, but it's not really open. We're just doing it for press and stuff like that. And we'll see who sings and whatever. Will you come in and sing for us anyway? So I went into the Ormond Hotel, and there's a bunch of queue around the corner, a bunch of lads. And I think because I had a previous engagement with them that I could probably skip the queue. And I went up and I sang Careless Whisper.
No.
Yeah.
Great tune.
Terrible tune.
Can you sing?
Coming out of this mouth.
No.
Terrible tune.
Okay.
Murdered it.
Yeah.
So bad they asked me to, could you do that could you do that again? And I sang it a second time. And I didn't feel great about myself after that.
They said, I don't think that's the best you can do.
And by the time he gets home, there's a call on his answering machine saying, "Ooh, yeah.
So sorry, babes.
Yeah, it's not going to work out at this time.
I don't think.
I don't. Doesn't end up living the boy band dream.
What's wild is you don't even have to be able to sing to be in a boy band, right? Like, you just gotta be
lip
hot.
sync.
I think it's a requirement for the audition. I think you have to be able to sing in the room.
You have to be passable.
Yes.
I would say, like, 3 out of the 5 have to sing. The other 2 just gotta have, like, rhythm.
I like that you did some dance moves there. Once again, not a visual medium, Louis. You got him down.
That's just for us. A little show for us.
Google's always watching.
From there, his brother's like, hey, don't let this get you down. Why don't you try acting? You have this love of acting. And so he attends the Gaiety School of Acting for a year. And also, I would like to point out, during this time, he also goes and spends a year in Australia. And at this time in Australia, he, like, gets this love of, like, theater troupes and juggling and sort of a very circusy education, I would say, more so than acting. And then he gets this year of acting school, but he drops out after a year because he's offered a role on Ballykiss Angel. I could not find anything of his time on Ballykiss Angel on the internet, which is bonkers because every time we do an episode like this, when we do Julianne Moore, I was able to find her on her soap operas. When we did Chris Hemsworth, I was able to find him on his Australian soap opera.
Right.
Colin Farrell, I think he's had it scrubbed.
Right.
You can find those line dancing videos of him on the internet. But
Exactly.
Not the soap opera.
But nothing of Ballykiss Angel. I do want to hit one thing I don't know too much about, but I do think it's an interesting thing to say. While he was in Sydney at the age of 18, he became the suspect in an attempted murder case. The police stopped him because they had a police sketch that looked remarkably like him. And he didn't do himself any favors because in the interview room, he said he blacked out in the night of question. His only alibi was a journal kept by his friend. And in that journal, it explained that they had been taking MDMA on the other side of town that night.
What kind of Brett Kavanaugh, like, my calendar, like, that feels very...
That feels like a plot of one of his movies. How is that not, you know?
True.
That's in Bruges too.
In 1999, he gets cast in Falling for a Dancer, which he knew. He was like, I have this in the bag. I'm a former dancer. I was able to find clips of this online. It's a mini series. I did not watch the whole thing because I was like, 3 hours. I'm not made of time. But he does then make his feature film debut in English actor Tim Roth's directorial debut, The War Zone, which is a drama about an incident of child abuse starring Ray Winstone and Tilda Swinton. I don't think he has a line in this movie. He plays the daughter of that family's boyfriend. I think he says like, hello, my name is, or something.
Yeah, he has like at least like one little scene where they're kind of like courting, but yeah, definitely not a big part by any means.
Which, you know, beautiful young, like, just 19-year-old.
What else do you need? It's
that-
pre-9/11. We were all very innocent back then.
That movie, by the way, is
fucked
real
up.
real dark. Real dark. Gird
Real fucked
yourself. If you're I liked it a lot. I did, but I was like, man, I am gonna have nightmares.
Wow. Okay. Great way to start. Filmography.
He then starts auditioning, going out for roles, and actually gets cast in a stage role for a new play called In a Little World of Our Own. That is so popular that it ends up going to London. And while he's in London, and I'm going to pause right here and just give you all a warning, there is never at any point in your life do you have to thank Kevin Spacey for anything. But Kevin Spacey is in the audience, and he sees hot young Colin Farrell.
Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this.
Yeah, this
is
feels
not-
icky.
Yeah.
And he's like, you should be in a movie. I'm making a movie in Ireland. And so he gets him a role in this film called Decent Ordinary Criminal that he's doing. And yeah, he basically or Ordinary Decent Criminal. Sorry, I don't want to get this name wrong of this horrible movie.
People were looking that up. People were looking it up trying to find it.
Sorry, Ordinary Decent Criminal. You won't find Decent
All you
Ordinary Criminal on
Spacey
IMDb.
heads out there.
And yeah, he basically plays like an underling of this crime lord. I did watch this movie. It's really bad. Kevin Spacey's Irish accent is about as terrible as, I don't know.
He is.
He is. Yeah, absolutely.
There we go.
Ireland's a great place to live, do you know that? Are we near Roundwood yet?
About half a mile. As soon as we get off this road, we're as good as there.
Fantastic. We might stop for a pint, will we?
Kevin Spacey helps him get his a first bigger role, and then not to like end the Spacey talk. Sorry for talking about Kevin Spacey so much, but this is all real. So he had just done one of the John Grisham adaptations with Joel Schumacher. It escapes me at the moment. Not The Client, the other one.
A Time to Kill.
A Time to Kill.
Spacey's in, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, hey, there's this hot young Irish guy. I know you're looking for a lead in your new movie Tigerland. And so he like points him, Joel Schumacher, in the direction of Colin Farrell, and he gets the role. He lands this lead, which is, you know, basically sort of unheard of. This is his third film, and it's this huge movie with a well-known film director, and he is playing the lead. That's kind of nuts. That doesn't happen.
And this is like the beginning. I feel like Colin at the beginning was really, they said, oh, she looks great in war. This is a soldier. This is a soldier, mama. So like Colin literally has been in so many wars, acted as Tigerland is Vietnam War, right?
Yes.
And we'll see in this early stage, I'm like, he plays a lot of cops, a lot of soldiers, cops of all stripes. And it started at the very beginning, babe.
They said, give this man a gun. The movie is fine, but you totally understand why it's like a breakout role for him, because he just pops. Like it definitely trying to give him the like Paul Newman kind of, breakout role. And I mean, he absolutely nails it. It's a performance that I really love. It's a really great cast. It's a super stacked cast, which I think speaks to Schumacher being able to do it. And it's like a Schumacher coming off of the Batmans and everything, so it's like him going for his like return to form indie. And yeah, it's a fine movie, but definitely worth watching for his performance. Did you like it?
I did. I'm more middle of the road like you are. I don't think it's an amazing film, and I do think it oftentimes feels a little Full Metal Jacket light.
Sure,
but I do think, it's both a really interesting looking film too, because he shot it on Super 16 and blew it up. And yeah, I think Farrell's performance really is something impressive for being, like I said, he has like 3 lines in his first movie, maybe 5-6 lines in the Kevin Spacey movie. Like this, he's in almost every scene. He truly is the star, and I think that's a lot of weight to put on somebody who hasn't done something like that before, especially somebody who truly has no film training, who was trained for the theater, and also, oddly enough, has never been back on stage since the play Spacey saw him in.
Jim Paxton. Yeah, let's not become friends, Jim. You could be dead tomorrow and I'd miss you too much. Excuse me? It's a joke.
I like that you compared him to Paul Newman. I hadn't thought about that, but it's truly what that is, sort of the smile, because he doesn't give it the hard The one thing that people,
mold.
yeah,
He looks hard. He looks like, he's
right, but
fucking
then
beat
it's all
you
like
up.
soft, gooey
Right.
center.
Right, but then he just like furrows his eyebrow, and you're like, oh my god, maybe I do want you to hit me.
Yeah. You think to yourself, I can change him.
Right.
So yeah, I get it.
We could.
Yeah, and we could. Okay, he's the rare Pokemon straight man where it's like, yeah, it's fine. Call me Slur, please.
Jesus.
We're gonna get letters. Please don't refer to this part of the episode in your review when you leave your 5-star review.
I didn't watch Tigerland, but I did see his next film, which
Yes.
was a bummer.
That's a choice. That's a real choice.
So his next film in 2001 is American Outlaws. American Outlaws is the story of Jesse James, the James Younger gang. It comes like really hot on the heels of Young Guns, which tells the exact same story. And what's really funny is I have not heard him name this movie, but I have heard him talk about this movie as the movie he did directly after Tigerland that he shouldn't have done, that he wasn't ready for.
I mean, the second film I did, which I think is it's a close call, I think, between two, but I think it's the worst reviewed film I've done, and that was the second one, so it was a quick kick in the arse I got. Yeah. But I was advised not to do that film by various people at the time, and I remember going there, I was offered $350,000 to do that film, and I was like, I can't say no to that. It's not like I didn't want anything. I didn't want a fast car. I didn't want a wardrobe. I didn't really care. I'm not. But I was like, I just can't. I didn't feel good enough about myself to say no to it. Yeah. Was the bottom line. I didn't feel confident enough in my own abilities to say that's amazing, and I'm in a very fortunate place. Obviously, if I'm getting such an offer. But no, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, this movie is a joke.
American Outlaws, which asks the question, why is Ali Larter an actress?
Thank you so much for just getting right to the Ali Larter in this movie. God bless.
Yeah. I believe you mean famous accused racist Ali Larter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the
Heroes.
One of her co-stars on Heroes, the guy that played her boyfriend was basically like she was the reason I was written off the show.
Right.
Jesus
because her
Christ.
boyfriend was a black man, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because then you watch American Outlaws and she is god awful.
Awful.
The
Awful.
line reading.
I think there
Outlaws.
really fully needs to be an investigation as to why there are so many Europeans pretending to be Americans in the Old West.
I will say though, I as we go through his filmography, I was like, okay, also Colin Farrell, we don't talk enough about his accent work is very good.
Very good. Yeah. There's one movie recently that it's very bad in, which we'll get to, but like surprising that it's bad in that one because in the early ones, really surprisingly good.
I was actually going to bring that up because I was thinking about our Ewan McGregor episode because I famously was like, Ewan, please stop. You're not an American. It doesn't work. Because Ewan McGregor does, I'm not challenging him on his craft, but his American accent is the most generic American. I am an American.
You're a robot.
And Colin, like, and I don't know what it is specifically, and I've heard him talk about like trying to make it specific and trying to really work with it to get the right tone specifically to where it's from. But I think one of the things that he does that's really smart is he keeps a little bit of his Irish lilt in the American. And I think because of that, it makes it more specific. It makes, regardless of like questioning where it's from mentally, you're like, oh, this is an accent. You know,
Well,
this
the
What a person sounds like.
Right.
Yeah.
And also the way he talks is very like melodic. He's got like personality in his delivery. So it's not just like ra-ta-ta-ta-ta, I'm trying to mask my voice.
For me, it's quite simply, dialects are quite simply something that is another avenue into the character or something that is a wall between you and the character. It's one or the other. There's very little middle ground. But it really warrants and deserves as much attention as you can ever pay it. And then it can be fun as well. The more specific and the more geographically placed something can be, the greater idea you'll have of a even socioeconomic foundation for such a thing. But yeah, dialects are interesting.
I also saw 2002's Heart's War.
Yes.
Which, again, war movie. Like, oh my God, how many times are we going to see this man? It
is a war movie though. You're right, but it's also a courtroom procedural and also a murder
drama.
mystery, and then also makes you wonder why Bruce Willis can't move his face and emote. Heart's War, not my cup of tea. I saw it for the first time for this episode I was not a fan so much, but I did think Colin was pretty decent in it.
Yeah, he's fine in it. It's not. It's like that run of procedural war movies, like Rules of Engagement came out like
Yeah.
around the same time, and like it's not too long after like Courage Under Fire, where it's like, why are we doing these like courtroom dramas about war? Are people really interested in this? And like the answer is no.
Well, it's
It is-
2002. Okay, so everyone wanted the drama in the military. Okay, like
It is 100% A Few Good Men's fault. I can answer that question
Yeah,
for you.
that's exactly
A
it,
Few Good
yeah.
Men was a hit, and then everybody was like, what's a military tribunal like? Oh my God.
yeah.
It's like boring, just like real court. In 2000 to 2003, he does a bunch of films, and this is sort of, it's funny.
Big year.
Yeah. I saw our previous guest, Dan Mecca, mention that you would need to go to bat for his studio output. In 2002 to 2003, he does Phone Booth, The Recruit, and SWAT. Where would you guys like to start?
Well, honey, I'm at a payphone trying to call home. Okay, I think Phone Booth is the stupidest movie I've ever seen, but it's so fun. I don't care.
I don't think it's fun. I think it's an incredibly stupid movie. I do not understand what people like about it.
I think I just love the idea. I mean, we were so innocent and pure, but like, do you know that people used to, what was it? If you were talking to yourself back in the day, you were crazy. Now, everyone does it when they're on their phone. I was like,
Oh, is that from the omniscient narrator who only narrates the very beginning of the movie?
Yeah.
What is,
Yeah.
Does Joel Schumacher think he's Dario Argento? Does he think he can get away with that crap?
That movie thoroughly entertains me, even though it makes no sense. They're like, yeah, I killed that pedophile, and you, because you maybe would have cheated on your wife, you might die too now. So think about that. It's ridiculous, but I don't
Deserved, really.
know. Yeah.
For those who don't know, Phone Booth is a film about self-absorbed publicist of all things who makes the mistake of answering the phone in a phone booth, and on the other end is a psychotic Kiefer Sutherland who has a sniper scope pointed at him, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and this to do a bunch of stuff that I say. Forrest Whitaker shows up as a policeman. It causes a big rigmarole in Times Square. I will say I really hate the look of the movie, but I will the one impressive feat I will give to it is that it was shot in 10 days.
The movie is completely ridiculous. The plot is bonkers bananas. But Colin, there's the moment where basically the murderer guy is like, no, you need to go embarrass yourself and humble yourself in front of everyone, and I won't kill you. And Colin literally is on that phone and fucking gives his master class. He is out there crying in the streets saying, I am nobody. I am a piece of shit. And like his monologue is I was like, excuse me, not a phone booth.
The last 20 minutes where Colin Farrell is like really giving.
He's giving.
He's good. And I have a hard time. I think I even referenced that in my Letterboxd review. I was like, the last 20 minutes contains the best acting, but this could have been a short film, baby.
I was like, oh, a lot of this movie is like, don't hang up. What do you want? Don't hang up. What do you want? Don't hang up. And I was like, there's no plot here.
I think it's funny to think about the fact that, like, you know, at one point it was Will Smith and Michael Bay, and then Michael Bay pissed off the producers because he called a meeting and was like, at what minute do we get him out of the phone booth?
Oh, and they're like, no. The whole thing is in the
The
phone
whole
booth.
thing.
I said 91.
Yes. And so it moved to Joel Schumacher, and Joel Schumacher wanted Jim Carrey. And I really think I think if you know that fact, which is maybe something that the general public doesn't know watching it, I think you can see that script is tailored for Jim Carrey. I think they didn't change it for Colin Farrell. And so he's like a little like, it's like a goofier than it should be, you know?
Colin said, bet. You like Midtown 2002? I'm there. I got it.
Kelly, I called some woman.
Every day.
Every day, I was attracted to this other woman, and I called her, and
I wanted to fuck her.
I wanted to sleep with her.
No, I wanted to fuck her. Say it. Say it!
And I wanted to fuck her.
Dan and I have bonded over our fondness of Farrell in this era. Phone Booth, The Recruit, SWAT, as far as I'm concerned, all good movies.
Let's not forget Daredevil and his turn as Bullseye.
Oh, yes.
Daredevil,
We'll
also
get
a
to
good
that.
movie, which he is great in. But Phone Booth, I like Phone Booth. I do agree that it is, it's a bonkers movie. It's not, it's ridiculous, but I think that it knows that. I think Schumacher definitely knows that. I think that it's also fun because it's the first instance we see a Farrell playing like a sleazebag, which he goes on to do, a bunch of times. And I think that he's really good at that. And it's a nice little switch from like the Tigerland thing, the American Outlaws thing of him being this like very clean cut American hero. Like Phone Booth, he's doing a very different thing and he really sells it well. I think you definitely buy him as this just like repugnant dude who, even if he doesn't deserve to get shot by a sniper, you still definitely don't like this guy, or even you're like not even rooting for him,
right?
Which is a really interesting take for that movie to have, rather than it being like a Cary Grant and a Hitchcock kind of thing or something where it's just like very black and white.
They still want him to be a likable leading man because like he does not cheat on his wife, right? Like this is a guy who is like trying to cheat on his wife but never does. They were like, okay, listen, we want him to fuck, but he can't really fuck, like, so just like the possibility. But yeah, I mean, I think that's Phone Booth well enough covered. I will say, I think I watched SWAT like a million years ago. I do not remember it well. So but to me in my head, it says like police nonsense.
Yeah. I don't like SWAT at all, I will say. I think it's just a lot. It doesn't do much for me. And it's a lot, like, I was like, so the police can just destroy anything? They can just destroy anything. Yes. And the only anecdote I really have from that movie is that Colin Farrell begged to do his own stunts. And one of the things was the dropping from a helicopter. And they were like, no, you can't do that. You're the lead, whatever. You can't do that. The stuntman did it, and on the first take, broke both of his ankles. So,
well, we got it.
Yeah, exactly. I think out of the three that I brought up, because there are other movies that we're gonna get to real quick, but I think of the three, I like The Recruit. I think it's Al Pacino, not even at his like fighting level, just doing an Al Pacino performance and still like taking everyone to school.
Wow.
I mean, literally at one point he spills coffee on him and he's like, my dick's on fire. And I was just like, classic Pacino.
I definitely The Recruit of the three is also my favorite. Like SWAT is 100% propaganda. Like Gavin, I think your Letterboxd review pointed out well. It's like that run of like, we're rooting for the good cops because like it's like about police corruption and like the cops are bad, but we're following the good ones, who are trying to stop the corruption. But like I enjoy it. I think that it's fun. I think that he is very charismatic in it and he has a lot of presence to him, which is something that like, especially going back and watching a movie like SWAT, which is very just like straight down the line American blockbuster, I think that you can appreciate that Colin Farrell brings like an energy that is very different and very unique to like when you compare it to the like white men who are leading those kind of movies now, where they are completely indistinguishable to me, like have absolutely no personality.
Right.
But The Recruit I think is really fun.
Yeah.
And it definitely is like a conspiracy thriller. I like all of the like weird CIA training stuff that they go through for like the first half of the movie is really interesting. And then it's like one of those movies where it's just like twist after twist after twist, like you don't know who you can trust. Oh, you can trust this person, now you can't trust that person, but can you trust yourself? We don't know. Are you in on it? We don't know.
But also during this time period you get maybe his first big high profile role, which he gets cast in Minority Report, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's a true supporting role, but it is Steven fucking Spielberg. And once again, this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is his fifth film in.
He was hot, babe. He was hot.
Who gets that? Who gets that? I like it. I'm not the world's biggest Minority Report fan. I know, shocking. That's not going to surprise anybody. But I do like it, and I think he's good at it.
Yeah, I really like Minority Report, but I also, for this podcast, talking about Colin Farrell specifically in Minority Report, I think is like a genius casting move. Because he is the hot young thing, and it like 100% feels like that character is coming in designed to take
Yes.
down Tom Cruise,
Yes.
and Colin Farrell is coming on the scene and is like supposed to take over basically the mantle of what Tom Cruise is. And I think like meta-wise, it's such a smart piece of casting, and just the arc of him coming in as this like antagonist, and we're supposed to like hate him for the entire movie until we finally like start to understand that like, oh no, this guy's actually right. And then the second that it's like he gets a hero moment of figuring it all out, ready to save the day, he gets taken out. Like I just love that arc of that character is so interesting.
What are you gonna do? Possession alone will cost you 6 months. Not to mention your badge. I guess we won't be working together after all. Now put the gun down, John. I don't hear a red ball.
I do imagine that the first time Spielberg introduced Tom Cruise to Colin Farrell, he was like, that's right, he's like you, but he can act.
Right. They were like, should we kiss? Or, I don't know.
I think Spielberg did the same thing with Shia LaBeouf too. He said, this is Tom, this is the next you.
This is the next you.
It's all gonna go well.
And then you did aforemention Daredevil. Daredevil is, once again, like 7th movie, like first foray into the comic book realm. Comic book movies were new-ish.
But they were a different animal in the aughts.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm still at someday going to pitch you on a pre-MCU Marvel episode, Louis.
Listen, we talked about this movie with our Jennifer Garner episode.
Yes.
A little bit. I am a famous defender of Daredevil. I think this movie is like way more fun than like most Marvel movies are now. Like I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's over the top, but like that's how movies used to be. That's how these used to be. Like it's a comic book movie. Like when he throws the thing and the big D comes out, I was like, oh my god. Also, like they said, no, Bullseye. We're gonna put the bullseye on his forehead.
Put the bullseye
Right.
right on. Make it very clear.
He's gonna be like licking his lips and this throwing shit.
I do like that during the early 2000s, there was that fear of putting characters into costumes, and there was that like superheroes don't need to wear costumes, villains don't need to wear costumes, but then they give him like a shark skin jacket and the bullseye carved into his head, and it's like, you gave him a costume.
Yeah.
I want a fucking costume.
It's a scene, Chewie. I love his interactions with Michael Clark Duncan, his interactions with Jennifer Garner. But yeah, Daredevil is, you're right, it's a very singular beast. I used to give it shit because I used to be like, wow, it seems like Mark Steven Johnson doesn't have any style. But then the guys that directed the Avengers were like, hold my beer.
Yes.
So
he's a busy guy in this time period.
I genuinely think it's the Spielberg connection. But he starts making blockbusters, and he's still doing like slightly smaller movies, but he really becomes, a blockbuster queen, essentially, because you have Alexander, The New World, Miami Vice. All of these things are auteur directors, like really working in like very singular mode. And at the same time, he's doing these smaller bits in between. You have Intermission, A Home at the End of the World, Ask the Dusk, which we talked about in our Selma Hayek episode, and maybe the less said, the better. But yeah, it's such an interesting run. And I think, I was talking to my boyfriend, Dan, and I was like, I think it's so interesting to look at his career now because he's doing so many more independent things, but still working with interesting directors. And I wonder why he's not doing blockbusters anymore. And Dan was like, it's not that he's not doing blockbusters anymore. It's that studios have stopped trusting these blockbuster directors with these budgets.
Right.
Because they want the sort of Marvel type people that they can control and like
But
have
also,
the authority
when you,
over.
When you think about Alexander, The New World, and Miami Vice, did any of those make money? Like, I Alexander, notorious flop,
Even like The New World was very critically acclaimed, but obviously Alexander and Miami Vice has gotten a massive reappraisal at this point, but Miami Vice and Alexander are huge critical flops as well. So like that was it felt like that run of, we're trying Colin Farrell out for the big blockbusters. This is your moment to shine. And then it just like all came apart. And obviously I'm sure you'll talk about too, like his personal life falling apart very much at the same time too. And so it all just kind of like crumbled around him, both professionally and personally here.
And it's funny because he's talked about how Alexander is both one of the high points of his career and the low points of his career.
See, one of the highlights was shooting Alexander, and one of the lowlights was how it turned out. Because it doesn't, like, people would go, get over it or whatever, and all that kind of stuff, which I get from the outside looking in, because, I still got paid so handsomely. I didn't finish school. The blessings that I still had, the real kind of tangible blessings and the fortune were there. But you're a human being and you work for 6 months and you don't want to bore anyone. You don't want to bore an audience member. And for me, I certainly have a respect that people give up 2 hours of their time to go to the cinema. The last thing you want to do is have them coming out saying, Jesus Christ, we spent £60 on the babysitter and fucking £40 on popcorn and tickets. That was a waste of our life.
Because when he was making it, he was able to get all of these other Irish actors employed. He was really able to work with Oliver Stone in a way that he had not worked with a director before. And unfortunately, it backfires because, yeah, it's a disaster. Nobody likes that movie. I've seen one of the 5 versions of it. I can't remember which one I've seen. I think the longest one because I was a maniac in college. But yeah, Alexander is a real disaster. I mean, I do like listening to him talk about working with Angelina Jolie, especially since they also dated. Because he was like, it's pretty weird having her play my mom.
Yeah.
So Alexander is one of the few Colin Farrell movies that I just hadn't seen, period, before we locked in doing this episode on it. So I was like, I know that Alexander is a movie that I have to watch before we do the episode just because of what it represents in his career. It's like definitely the biggest one that I haven't seen, and I avoided it for so long because one, I don't like Oliver Stone in general, really. But then
solid,
two, like
understandable.
It just looks like a slog. And yeah, I watched the theatrical cut, which is just because it's the only one that's available on iTunes, and I was not like buying a Blu-ray of the ultimate cut for this. But I know people
Zack
who
Snyder's
like the movie.
Alexander.
I know people who like the movie say the ultimate cut is the one to watch, but I'm not gonna watch like another hour longer version of this movie. It's a real chore to get through. It doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to be. You want it to be campier than it is because of like how bad it is, and like literally everybody is fucking in this movie. Everybody is so horny in this movie, and it's like, just go for it more. Why not?
It's sort of funny too, because a lot of people claimed at the time that what really sunk it was the fact that they didn't shy away from the fact that Alexander was bisexual, and then that became like a new big news event where it was like, oh, Alexander the Great is bisexual, and it's like, what? Yeah, I know that they don't teach that in history books, but literally everybody was fucking back then. They didn't have TV. Like, right.
But also, I mean, it's funny. So I like watched half an hour of it, and then I realized, oh my god, like, because there's a version on Amazon that's like, I don't know, it's like Alexander something else, Alexander Unrestricted. I don't fucking know. But I was like, there's
so you watched
so much
the porn version.
Alexander Unleashed.
Yeah. And I was like, there's so much left of this movie. I can literally watch an entire other movie. And so instead I watched A Home at the End of the World, which also bisexual chaos, and like I think that was what fueled the like people were like taking screenshots of him kissing boys, and like it has led to more and more of the like aggressive paparazzi craziness.
Right. Yeah.
And because you did bring it up, Mitchell, you did bring up his personal life. I mean, it'd be a good time to sort of stop down his movie career and talk about it. In 2000, he had met Amelia Warner at the premiere of Quills, and they dated from July to November of 2001. And there were some people who claimed that they were married, but he's never, said which way. He just said that the relationship was too fast and too young. Then in between 2001 and 2005, he is linked to Britney Spears, Nicole Narian, Elizabeth Taylor, Angelina Jolie, Maeve Quinlan, and Demi Moore. So it's just like lady after lady after lady.
Busy boy.
He meets American model Kim Bordenave, and they have a son together, James Pedrig. Then in 2005, he checks himself into rehab for addiction to recreational drugs and painkillers. He goes on Letterman and he talks about how this really ended up helping him out and saved his life.
I've been on such a mad trip for 6 or 7 years that I just had to step back and have a look at my life, and having my son as well was the primary reason. Just wanted to be there for him, wanted to be clear, be around him, remember being with him, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
In sort of an unfortunate turn, he did find out that his son has Angelman syndrome, which is a very rare genetic disorder characterized by intellectual and development delay, including lack of speech and excitable demeanor. And, he said that his son didn't learn to start walking until 4, and really he has a life ahead of him of just a lot of speech therapy and a lot of but you know, he's like, he's not suffering, and that's great. He's like, I've met people with diseases who, you know, who suffer their whole life, and this could be worse, but also it's so heard of because it's like 1 in 30,000 people gets it. So you know, I've literally not heard him talk about his son since. I don't know how his son has developed past the age of 4, but you know, hopefully all good things there.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about like how he checked himself into rehab or this program to help out, because he very easily could have been like so many other like hot young rock and roll guys who are actors and just like overdose, you know? Yeah, I mean, like, see, Heath Ledger to me feels most comparable just because they both were like hot.
I mean, yeah, Colin Farrell took over Heath Ledger's role in Parnassus too.
Right, it's just like they're both like hot, hard looking but kind of soft men who were like really accessible. And yeah, that shit, like, I mean, celebrity is one hell of a fucking drug, so I'm just like really happy he was able to, you know, get that under control, and we still have him today.
Yeah, and it's cool too that like in interviews today, he's just like very open about like the whole process, the fact that he like came out and was just like very much like willing to talk about it and talk about the hardships of it and like the kind of process of it. And it's interesting too, like people bring up Miami Vice to him plenty because of how much people like love that movie now and everything, and he will be like, yeah, I don't remember a second of shooting that movie, like I was blacked out basically the entire time that I was shooting that movie.
He talks about how he has huge holes in his memory, huge blackout moments that he has no memory of partying or what he was doing. That's wild. I cannot imagine. I mean, I was young once. There are times where I've been blackout, but like I can count them on my hand. Like I can't imagine having massive
bits of an entire movie.
Yeah. Also, just to get it out of the way before we pop back in to his movie career, in January 2006, Farrell filed a lawsuit against his ex-girlfriend, American model Nicole Narain, and the Internet Commerce Group for the unauthorized public distribution of a 13-minute sex tape they made in 2003. He was offered $5 million for its rights. While IGC tried to release it, Narain said she would work with Farrell to ensure the tape remained private. Farrell said she tried to release it to damage his acting career and, quote, make money out of it, which Narain denied. On April 16th, 2006, they reached a confidential settlement. Farrell's lawsuit against ICG continued with a trial date for July 21st, 2006, and was eventually settled amicably. I've only seen him talk about this once, and I think it was on Jonathan
Ross.
Yeah, Jonathan Ross. And they had a big laugh about it, but you could kind of tell.
Yeah, it was like some woman in the crowd just like quoted a line that he said in the tape, like while they were like recording the show. She like quoted a line, so he like repeated it back to her or whatever and like laughed. But it's like, who the fuck are you to like say a line that somebody said in a sex tape that got leaked that like they're obviously uncomfortable with?
No, because the whole thing, I got offered a pile of money to sign off on it and have it in on command in hotels and stuff. Could you imagine if my mother came along and, God forbid, she'd tell me something like, "Oh, you remind me of your father at certain angles." So I couldn't have that. So
I think it's an important reminder to our audience. Not that, I mean, I think we have the best audience in the world, so hopefully do not take this to heart. But like, you don't have ownership of the other people's bodies. You don't get to like. That stuff is not for your enjoyment. Leaked sex tapes, it's so gross and like so invasive.
Yeah, I mean, like this is like, you know, the beginning. I feel like it's a lot more common now, obviously. Like, and I think the cult, we've like as humans, we've like learned how like what etiquette there is for that stuff. Back then, it was just the wild fucking west of like, it was so new, right? I mean, like obviously there was the Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee video, which really kicked shit off. But like when there was hot young actor guy and like a sex tape digitally, like you didn't have to go buy this thing. Like, it was Brave New World. And yes, don't be a fucking creepster.
But you came here for film. So back into his film career. I do just really quickly want to mention Intermission, which is a dark comedy that he did in Ireland, and it basically contains every working Irish actor at the time. Cillian Murphy, Colm Meaney, and it's fun, but it is he opens the movie and he like hits a girl in the face.
Crazy opening scene.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh no. So I was like, Colin, don't do that.
This is his hit girls in the face era, though, because in
It
Bruges.
truly is. In Bruges, exactly.
Sure.
It does seem to be the Irish films that want him to punch ladies. I don't know if either of you want to talk about The New World. The New World, unfortunately, is one of the few films of his that I have not seen. And then Miami Vice, we mentioned it briefly. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it. He has had reservations about Miami Vice as well, because he has said for the stuff that he remembers is he remembers having a really good relationship with Jamie Foxx and a really jokey relationship behind the scenes, and he wishes the movie had more of that in it. He says the movie's like very self-serious, and I have to agree with him, and I'll be perfectly honest. I don't think the movie's anywhere near as bad as the critics at the time thought it was, but I also just don't think it's anywhere near as good as critics have made it out to be. Because I mean, I think the filmmaking itself is really beautiful. I think Michael Mann has done a really good job at doing the sort of digital, the close-ups, the like really immersive. But Colin Farrell's like, I'm gonna talk like this throughout the movie, and
very sweaty. He's very sweaty.
I just though him and Gong Li, I mean, I can't think of two more beautiful people to have dance together. But yeah, thoughts on Miami Vice?
Mitchell, you said that it's had this reprisal. I was like, really?
Yeah, it has.
Oh yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, I'd never seen this movie before, and I put it on, and I was like, this is the most fucking boring movie I've ever seen in my life.
But you loved Black Hat. I don't understand.
No, get out of here, Gavin. It's very serious. I will say that this is also one of the rare roles where I'm like, okay, the accent work is shaky, quaky, and hearing that he was blacked out the entire time makes sense now. I just can't imagine taking a show like Miami Vice, which is colorful and fun and like kind of silly, and then they're like, but let's make it this. And imagine Miami, the most fucking dour fucking place ever. Like, holy
Michael
shit.
Mann was the executive producer of the TV
his
show,
own
Louis.
show,
his
yeah.
own show. He
said,
did that to it. Look what they've done to my boy.
yes. What happened to my good boy? Yeah, I don't like this movie. I don't think he's good in it. I'm not like super knowledgeable about like shooting and all that shit, but I was like, this movie also just like looks weird to me. Like there was moments where it looks like found footage shit when they're like at the crime scene.
It's in that era of filmmakers like him and Soderbergh like starting to kick off the like digital era, so it's like definitely looks like low quality now. But it was them trying to like revolutionize like a new form. I personally like, I don't fully go towards the space of like, you know, pals like Blake Howard and Katie Walsh who like adore, like think Miami Vice is like one of like the masterpieces of the last 20 years. I don't go that far, but I do really like Miami Vice and The New World, and I really like their places for him specifically because I think they get into this space for him where he's able to really utilize his ability to be really like still and quiet and just like connect with his scene partners, especially in the romances with Koryanka Kilcher in The New World and Gong Li in Miami Vice. I think that he really brings like a romantic side out of him in these two films that I really respond to, and I think that he definitely taps into like later in his career too. But those two films kind of are like intertwined for me from coming at the same era. But yeah, I really like both of them personally.
I love you talking about like the romance he brings up because he does have a lot of that in him. I mean, in A Home at the End of the World, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It is just oozing. He is sweet, tender boy. It's all love. Like, I wish.
And when you compare it to Ali Larter and him in American Outlaws.
My God. Literally, I think Robin Wright in this movie is so good. So yes.
Home at the End of the World Home at the End of the World. We didn't really talk about it much, but that's a great movie. People should definitely check that out.
It truly is.
Claire loves you. I love Claire. Doesn't this all seem sort of strange?
No, man. It's perfect. Just like this.
Bobby, I'm starting to feel a little extra.
You're essential, man. Hey, let's dance.
Can't dance to opera.
You can dance to anything.
And he like sort of sought it out because he loved the hours. So like it was something that he truly wanted to do.
Thank God they cut that hair though, because that wig parade.
Jesus.
I think the next logical stop is, Woody Allen's Cassandra's Dream, which, by the way, he said Woody Allen didn't even know who he was. Like 3 days before filming, he like had a costume test brought in front of him, and he was like, "Why's Ewan wearing this suit?" And he was like, he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm Colin. That's Colin. That's me." And
Great.
So, anyways, but I think the next logical stop is In Bruges, 2008. It opens in the Sundance Film Festival. You know, it's Martin McDonagh's first full-length feature film. Martin McDonagh, famed playwright, has had kind of a back-and-forth career since then, but I think In Bruges is a masterpiece. I love In Bruges.
When it finished and it said, like, written and directed by Martin McDonagh, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
When I read the fact that he has not been on stage since, you know, he was an early 20-something, I was like, what the fuck? Like, Martin McDonagh's never been able to pull him into one of his shows.
Yeah,
I saw The Hangman on Broadway, and it was fine. But if it had been Colin Farrell, it would have been amazing. So
Yeah, In Bruges was one of those movies I hadn't seen, but like had always heard it was amazing. And then I watched it last night, and I was like, okay, this shit slaps.
I really like In Bruges too. It was like a discovery weirdly for me because I saw it when it got a wide release in theaters. So it came to I was living in Dover, Delaware at the time, and it came to the theater in the mall there. And I was like, oh, what's this like little movie that I don't really know that much about? Let me go check that out. And saw it with my friend and came out that was one of the best movies that I've seen in years. It's just, it's so quirky and fun. It's I mean, the McDonagh thing, it's very fun, it's very charged and energetic, but Colin Farrell in it again, we talked, I think, off mic before we started recording about just his range, and that people maybe don't appreciate enough about his range or talk a lot about his range. Him coming into In Bruges and just doing this dark comedy where he's playing this almost childish hitman, and but who also has such remorse and guilt and brings his heart into it when you start to understand why he's acting the way he's acting and what he's holding on to. There is just so much depth going on to him and dimension that he's playing in this movie.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
I would like to put a little pin, just a teeny tiny pin, in the word childish, and we're going to come back to that.
Put a pin in Bruges.
Bruges. In 2008, he does Pride and Glory, the Gavin O'Connor film with Edward Norton. It's another sort of propaganda movie where it's the bad cops are bad, but also the good cops are bad, but they're allowed to do it.
He threatens a baby with an iron.
And that baby was like, no.
Don't do
it.
it.
Baby said, I have American Sniper auditions in 5 minutes. I can't do it right now.
Baby. He ends up getting a Golden Globe for In Bruges, speaking of still not nominated for an Oscar. And him, Johnny Depp, and Jude Law also, once again, you mentioned before, they complete Heath Ledger's role from the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, in which all three of them donate their earnings to Ledger's daughters, Matilda. He does Triage with Oscar-winning Bosnian screenwriter and director Denis Tenovic. I had to seek out this movie. It is not a well-seen movie. I really liked it. It's about PTSD, and it's hard to sell that movie. I think it's got some length problems, and I think the script is not great. And I also think Paz Vega maybe gives a bad performance in it, but Colin Farrell and Christopher Lee doing some psychiatric work together, pretty great.
What do you feel when you see all these bodies lying around everywhere? Sorrow, fear, relief that you are not amongst them, that you have survived.
Fuck you.
Excuse me?
I said fuck you. I'm not one of your fucking war criminals, right? So just back off!
You said you wanted to talk to me.
I never fucking asked you to come here!
He does a small role in Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges, which I've heard him talk about how easy that role was, because he's I didn't have to do any character work. The script did it all for me. Everybody's always talking about this character. I just had to show up and shoot for a week. And I was good for him for being cool, no work. But he did get to sing in it, and it is actually his voice, so he's not as bad as he thinks he is.
So take that, Boyzone.
Undine in 2009, the Neil Jordan film, shot by Christopher Doyle, Wong Kar-wai's longtime collaborator in terms of cinematography. I know not a lot of people like this movie. I really liked it.
I think it's sweet. It's interesting. I wasn't expecting the like crime angle of it to be as hard, but like I like it. Yeah,
it's so funny. I did see somebody comment on your Letterboxd review mentioning Petzold's Undine, which came out last year, which I loved, and that movie is like way above this one. So I don't want to try and compare them, but I do like that they went opposite routes. Where Petzold was like, oh, it's not a fairy tale, but is it? And this movie was like, it is a fairy tale, but it's not. And I was like, oh, I appreciate the opposite tract of that. He co-stars with Keira Knightley in London Boulevard, which we mentioned in our Keira Knightley episode. Is real bad. First,
you guys did a great job covering that on the Knightley episode. Not a good movie.
2011, I think he's starting to like...
Shake it off.
Shake it off. He's letting go of the big awards grabs, letting go. And he's like, I think I'm just going to have fun. I think I'm just going to do the acting thing and just going to do a lot. And 2011 brings us Horrible Bosses. He also has the Fright Night remake that year. I've seen Horrible Bosses. I do not like it. I think he's sort of brilliant in it.
He's great in it.
Yeah. I think the reason to watch that movie, even though the three main guys are Jason Bateman, Jason Sudeikis, and Charlie Day. But I think the real reason to watch that movie is Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx.
Yeah. And Jennifer Aniston also.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very sexy in it.
And who's the other boss? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
We'll forget about it. We'll just move on.
Some guy you never need to thank. And
he's a ton of... I mean, just talk about sleazebag. Like, he is just playing it up. He's got the comb over.
Right, he's clearly having so much fun playing against type and like wearing the hair, the makeup, like it definitely feels like him being like, oh, I can really play.
Right. The Fright Night remake is something that I didn't want to love because I really love the original, but I do think the Fright Night remake is a lot of fun, and I think he is so sexy as a vampire.
Sexy. Jesus. You're like, I would let him do whatever he wanted to do. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you in this home in this cul-de-sac? I don't know. Just bite me. Whatever. I don't care. I've stopped caring. Please just take me. That's a fun remake.
Really fun movie. Yeah.
Total Recall 2012. Speaking of unnecessary remakes,
there you go.
I did see him. There's a great actors on actors of him and Hugh Grant. You can find it on YouTube. It's like 30 minutes long. And towards the end of it, Hugh Grant is asking him about like, you know, would you, at this point in your career, I don't think this was that much further because it was around the time The Lobster came out. He's like, at this point in your career, would you still do like a script that's a 7, but you knew was going to make $100 million versus a script that's a 10, but is only going to get seen at like, you know, a Lithuanian film festival. and he was like, you could drop it to 5. I have kids. He's like, I know. And he's like, you know, when I'm doing a movie, like sometimes I'll do a film and guess what? Total Recall doesn't require that I do a lot of acting. I just show up and I do it.
I have a really healthy appreciation for the nature of commerce of the film business, and my personal proclivity and thereby inclination is to be drawn genuinely to smaller, more intimate stuff. Things I've done like Undine or In Bruges or The Lobster, stuff that usually has a budget between 5 and 10 million, but the characters, because they don't have to find such a big audience, the characters have a greater sense of specificity to them and maybe a greater internal struggle that can find avenues of emotional or intellectual exploration that the $100 million, $150 million films maybe don't afford just in how they're crafted. And you can go, well, you should still bring the same level of attention. You do, but Total Recall will not allow you to do the same level, or maybe I'm just not good enough, the same level of or at least attempt to find the same level of specificity and depth. It doesn't want it of you. It doesn't need it of you.
7 Psychopaths in 2012, again from Martin McDonagh. This is not as a success. Or it breaks even at the box office, and some reviewers really like it.
No.
Not this one. It leans in, for me, it leans into like all of McDonagh's worst tendencies. Like it feels totally like just the Tarantino ripoff thing,
Yeah,
and it's not. It's like gross.
We talked about this movie in our Sam Rockwell episode a million years ago. But
I mean, it's fun to watch, but specifically because he's sort of playing the straight man to Sam Rockwell's like, I'm so bonkers, and he's kind of got the Brendan Gleeson role if this were in Bruges,
but just watch in Bruges instead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just watch in Bruges again.
2013's Dead Man Down, which is the first movie I watched for this. It certainly happened.
I kind of like it.
I know you do. I read your thing saying that you were going to defend it. That's fine. You have your moment if you want it.
I mean, it's like, I think the repeated pattern is me liking these like crime these very generic like 90s
Mitchell, reveal
crime
yourself.
thriller.
You're actually a cop. Tell us the truth.
I will say, I think this is no fault of Noomi Rapace, and I don't really have an issue with her. I will say she's one of the few people I did not feel any chemistry between them, and I
would agree with that. Yeah,
I don't know what it was, why there was that lack of connection there. I will say the third act, he drives a car through a house, and I was not expecting that. I was kind of like, okay,
choices.
Yeah, car through a house, interesting.
That's the Dead Man Down.
That is the Dead Man Down. 2014. Winter's Tale.
Let's go. The next 2 hours.
Written and directed by Akiva Goldsman, his directorial debut. Akiva Goldsman famously wrote Batman and Robin. Winter's Tale. What can't you say about Winter's Tale? Have you seen Winter's Tale, Louis?
I feel so left out. I have not seen Winter's Tale.
This is a real treat.
Okay.
I vividly remember seeing that in theaters, going home and making like a Facebook status that was like, I just saw a movie where a girl dies because Colin Farrell fucked her and it was too hot. If there's any way to go, that's the way I want to go.
Correct.
Same.
It's truly amazing. He does the role of P.L. Travers, alcoholic father in Saving Mr. Banks, a movie that I saw in theaters and did not like, but my mom loves it. So
bad movie.
Yeah,
he's good in it. He's good in it though.
I think we've all seen Liv Ullmann's adaptation of Austin Stringbird's Miss Julie.
Julie.
We have all seen it.
Yeah, that is certainly a movie with two really good performances in it.
It's crazy though. It's like, fucking is bad, but also I want it, but I will kill you.
Well, I'm going to let you guess who the two are.
Samantha Morton is very
Samantha Morton's really good in it.
Samantha Morton and Colin Farrell is pretty good too. And someone else is there.
Thank you.
Chastain, I was like, she's perhaps a little bit out of her depth.
Yeah,
even though
she doesn't have the range.
I love her dearly. I think she's excellent, but whenever she's like crying, she's like on the floor rolling around. I was like, this needed a more delicate touch, ma'am.
I like her. I maybe not in the love camp, but I do like her, and I've seen her in movies where I thought she's very good. Mitchell, I'm aware that she is your mortal enemy.
I am famously not a Jessica Chastain fan, so Miss Julie felt very vindicating for me because I was like, this is bad.
Yeah, I knew it.
This is
I knew it.
bad. This is what I'm seeing this whole time that none of you other motherfuckers are seeing.
And you know what? If I only saw Miss Julie, I'd be like, Mitchell's damn right.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Stay here. Keep quiet. Nobody knows.
I can't stay here. Everyone knows.
They don't know. And they would never believe it.
I suppose there are consequences.
In 2015, he stars in The Lobster, which is Yorgos Lanthimos' English language debut. I mean, I don't know enough good things to say about The Lobster. I love The Lobster. I love his role. I love his little mustache. I love that every interview he did, he's like, oh, I got fat, when he has the tiniest little
like,
bellies. Like
the hottest he's ever been in The Lobster.
Yes.
Like that,
The
he
Lobster,
is so hot in The Lobster.
This is the era where he's like, I'm going to play like weird dads now. And we talk about The Lobster in our Rachel Weisz episode.
Yeah.
We live, laugh, loved it then. We live, laugh, love it now. I said, yes, pop off, you little freak. I love it.
Very true. And like from here, it's literally kind of become this like 1 for you, 3 for me sort of situation. You know, he's in the Harry Potter universe now with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Him, where he plays like one of 1,000 versions of Johnny Depp, I guess. He does The Beguiled in 2017, Killing of a Sacred Deer, once again with Yorgos Lanthimos, Roman J. Israel Esquire. I have seen The Beguiled before. I love it. I think he's great in it. Killing of a Sacred Deer, I like not as much, but I do like it.
She's no lobster.
Yeah, she's no lobster. Though he is, once again, it's another like very hot, like kind of a little bit of a tummy. And I will say when what's his face, Barry Keoghan?
Keoghan?
Yeah, Barry Keoghan, when he's like, "Can I touch your hairy chest?" I was like,
The dream. You're asking the right questions, buddy.
yeah, I was like, he is me, I am him. And then Roman J. Israel Esquire, I just watched for this. I remember when that came out, and I think the reviewers hated it, and I really dug it.
Great movie.
It's this movie about a civil rights lawyer whose boss dies, and his former protege, that's played by Colin Farrell, takes him into his firm and makes the mistake of making Denzel Washington, who's playing Roman J. Israel Esquire, making him like a front-facing counsel instead of writing briefs, which is what his former boss used to do. And it like breaks him and makes him do some things that he wouldn't have done otherwise. I think what's interesting is in less delicate hands, Colin Farrell would clearly be the villain of the movie. And I think it's very smart that he's not the villain of the movie. He is a person doing what he thinks is the best that he can do. And it's not always good, but it's very human.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. It definitely had that stink from like Nightcrawler was so huge, and people were like, "Oh, how are you gonna follow this up?" And then like it is such a like unconventionally structured movie. It's very like amorphous. It does not have like a really traditional 3-act structure. There's
not
like
at all
10 different like subplots going on, and they all end up like tying together in I think really effective ways. It's just really powerful. I think Denzel Washington's performance is absolutely sensational in it. I love that he got the Oscar nomination. I think he should have won the Oscar for that. It's absurd that Gary Oldman won the Oscar for that year, but like the character is like, they don't I think ever explicitly state it, but it's very clear that he's like on the autistic spectrum. And I think that it is a very like nuanced and like respectful portrayal of somebody on the spectrum. It is not, he's not going like over the top with like tics and like all this other kind of stuff. But I think that's kind of the most effective thing about it is he is this guy who's trying to do the right thing in a world that doing the right thing is not black and white at all. It's very gray, and he doesn't quite understand how to fit into that world. So yeah, then he kind of crosses that line into doing something that maybe isn't above board and sees like the rewards of that, but then struggles with the morality of that. It's a really fantastic movie that, yeah, I'm really glad that you loved it, because it's one that I think people either didn't give the proper credit to or just skipped altogether because they heard kind of that and that they should seek out now. It's really fantastic. And yeah, as you said, I love, it reminded me of the Minority Report of Colin Farrell, where like that character could so easily just be straight up a bad guy. But yeah, it's so much more complex than that.
I sent you an email today to come to my office.
I'm sorry, but when people send emails, they think it goes straight to your brain.
You better take what I'm saying seriously, because I'm being very, very sincere with you.
I think you knew what you were getting when you brought me in, George.
I thought you were functional.
I think you brought me in to put your feet to the fire because you're tired of treating low-income clients like dollar signs, and because maybe you remember what it feels like to actually care. That's what I think, George.
Well, no, I hired you to make a buck, which is why I thought you took the job.
I need money. Badly, of course, but what I really need, George, is an ally.
2018's Widows, which he has like a sort of
pretty
minor role, but he's great. And Tim Burton's Dumbo.
LOL.
That, by the way, is the movie that I was talking about, where his accent in Dumbo is god awful. I have no idea what he was doing. He shows up like early on. He's like the main character in it, other than Dumbo, of course. He shows up with a missing arm and immediately starts speaking, and there's just this butchered accent, and I was like, oh god, I'm in for a ride here.
He said, fine, I'll take your money, Disney, but I'm gonna be crazy.
And then like, his latest, he's having a year for himself. The first film to come out this year, he was the Penguin and Matt Reeves' The Batman. He just had a film come out to Amazon, which is 13 Lives, which is the docudrama about the divers that saved the 13 children from the Thai cave.
Directed by Ron Howard.
Yeah, directed by Ryan Howard. Later this year, he has The Banshees of Inisherin. I'm sure I'm saying that completely wrong, but that's okay. And that's another, him reteaming with Martin McDonagh and Brendan Gleeson. So like very exciting to see that. Didn't even mention, peppering throughout his career. He has done TV. He did a season of True Detective, the season that everybody supposedly hates. I only watched the first season, so I don't know.
It's not good.
He did a 5-part miniseries last year called The North Water. And he's going to be doing the TV series version of The Penguin, which supposedly is just being called The Penguin. Inventive names.
Just disappointing.
Just to get a tiny bit back into his personal life. In 2009, he fathered a second son, Henry Tadeusz, with Polish actress Alicia Bachleda-Kuros, who was the lead in Undine. And then the relationship ended a year later. That's basically it for his personal life. He is a supporter of the Special Olympics. He was the celebrity spokesperson in 2007 for the games in Shanghai. He lent his support to the anti-bullying campaign Stand Up, organized by Irish LGBT youth. And in 2015, he became the official ambassador of the Homeless World Cup. But yeah, that's basically Colin Farrell's career in a nutshell. There's some crazy ups and downs in there. I think, I brought up earlier, I think it's interesting to watch him change, to watch that range grow. I know you both said really positive things about Daredevil, and I do think he's good in Daredevil, but I think it's the earliest he realized, like, you can push it too far. You can really chew the scenery.
He likes a costume. He likes a hairpiece. He likes,
He said, I'm going to act.
Yes. Acting.
Yeah. And I think after that, he's sort of been able to, even when he's invited to play something that's a bit bigger, he drops it back a little. I'm thinking of like the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which admittedly, like, he had somebody else's performance to base it off of, but I think he realized like there is, or even then, let's say Horrible Bosses, like he knows like how to get in and get out without being like
even the Batman too, like that he could have gone so much bigger for that, but he's like, I'll let the prosthetics basically do the talking for this, and basically plays it pretty straight.
And that's why I really like his performance. I'm still of the mind that like Warner Brothers could hire a fucking fat actor, but I do think Colin Farrell's very good at it, and I do think the scenes he's in, especially because that movie is so dour looking, he livens them up, especially like the hey yo, what are you showing me here?
Yeah.
Boy, you guys are a hell of a duet here. Why'd you start harmonizing? There's only one problem with your little scenario, okay? I ain't no rat. You got any idea what Carmine Falcone would do to me? How you just gotta talk?
No, you don't want to talk about rats, huh? Maybe we can talk about what they did to my partner's face.
Holy God, what are you showing me? His head. Come on! Open your eyes!
Anyways, that's Colin Farrell. Why don't we move into our picks? We've talked enough about his career. Why don't we move into our 1-star reviews and get the bad out of the way first?
All right, Mitchell, as our guest, you get to go first. What is your 1-star review?
Yeah, so my 1-star, it's the thing that I know you guys get a lot, is like, do you go movie or do you go performance kind of thing? And so I wanted to go more performance, because I feel like that just makes more sense if we're like reviewing Colin Farrell. So for me, my 1-star is Total Recall. I think that he has worse movies for sure, and even like worse performances, but Total Recall's the one where like I most felt like he just like doesn't even know like why he's there. Like it's just like,
let me tell you, I was in the theater going, why am I here? So that's
it feels in a way like that. As much as I like the like SWAT, the Recruit kind of era, and like Miami Vice, like Total Recall feels like that like last gasp of Hollywood trying to make him do that kind of thing that like never really suited him. And as much as I wanted Total Recall to be fun, because it seemed like the kind of thing, as you've heard some of my tastes, that like I would enjoy at least, but yeah, it just like saps all of the creativity out of that like world, and he just feels totally drained of it. And the movie's not good. It was same as you, Gavin. It was a little bit better when I rewatched it like a week ago for this than it was when it came. Than I remembered it being when it came out. But like, Kate Beckinsale has the smallest arms in the world, and they want me to believe that she can fight Colin Farrell. Like, come on. Jessica Biel, I can believe. Jessica Biel looks like a badass, but like, Kate Beckinsale, come on.
Tell me what is going on. Talk, or we can skip straight to until death do us part.
I'm not your wife.
That's bullshit. We've been married 7 years.
I'm UFB police intel, assigned to play your wife. 6 weeks ago, I didn't even know you.
It's really bad. I understand the thought process of, you know, Colin Farrell is hands down a better actor than Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I was recently revisiting our Tim Burton episode because it's his birthday coming up soon. And when we were talking about Batman 89, we were talking about how Tim Burton was like, yeah, casting Michael Keaton makes sense because he looks like a normal person, and Batman wouldn't be muscle on top of muscle, or else it'd be easy to figure out who he is. And so I think his like wiriness makes sense to cast him as like an undercover agent instead of it being a guy who's just a walking, you know, like tricep.
Schwarzenegger, you all like pretty much every movie that's not like Terminator, you basically have to allow yourself to get over that hill.
Yes.
Like, it makes no sense for any person to look like this.
Right, exactly.
This man has hobbies.
and so like, yeah, it's like there's things that I think could have worked for it, and they just weren't interested in playing into any of that. Yeah.
Good pick, Mitchell.
So I do oftentimes do this based on performance. And so I did pick a film that I do think he's genuinely bad in, but also I think is a terrible movie. And that's 2015's Solace. Solace is a film that was written as a sequel to the movie Seven, with the log line that Morgan Freeman's character has suddenly developed psychic powers and therefore can hunt down criminals using his psychic powers. David Fincher was like, hashtag this is stupid. And they were like, you're right. And so they saved the script, rewrote it, and decided to do it years later. It's a film in which Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays an FBI agent who is getting his friend, played by Anthony Hopkins, out of retirement. But Anthony Hopkins has retired because his wife has left him after his daughter has died of cancer. And Anthony Hopkins is a psychic. And there's a person running around murdering people. And I'm going to have to ruin the twist of the movie, but it's an 1.5 hour movie. Colin Farrell doesn't show up till the last half an hour. Colin Farrell's the killer. And it turns out he's also a psychic.
Wow.
He's a more powerful psychic.
The psychics are fighting.
Yeah. And what he's doing is his powers let him see if someone's going to get a terminal illness, and then he's killing them so they don't suffer.
Right.
He's really altruistic, except he's also fucking insane. And I don't understand why they were like, cool. So we're giving you this backstory of being like, oh, but also like, be crazy. Like, really play up that you're nuts, so the audience really hates you. Also, just on the front of the film being offensive, this movie came out in 2015. I know it was an older script. One of the first bodies they find is a woman in a tub, and Anthony Hopkins is like, don't touch the water. Don't touch. I don't know why. Just don't touch the water. You find out through his psychic visions that her boyfriend had left her because he's secretly gay, had been cheating on her, contracted HIV, gave her HIV, and Colin Farrell killed her because 2015.
You die from HIV, that's it?
You just do.
If you get
also,
you're fucking dead in a month. We all know that.
Yeah, and you also only get it from gay people.
Of course.
And don't touch that fucking water.
And don't touch the water because it's dirty.
Water.
Full of AIDS.
Good goddamn. What offensive shit is that? 2015.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like, I was like,
that's wild.
Oh my God, was this film written in 1986? No, it wasn't. So I was already primed to be very mad at this film. But I think what makes it even worse is when you go up against somebody like Anthony Hopkins, you got to bring your A game. And this is Anthony Hopkins this is Anthony Hopkins sleepwalking. This is a role he's played before. I mean, he's basically doing Hannibal Lecter.
Right.
It's easy for him. And there's the scene where they first meet, and he's like, I'm going to describe to you everything that's going to happen, all the outcomes of you. And I was just like, no, babe.
Hello?
No, this is not acting 101. Colin.
Johnny's life I take. It's a life saved from enormous pain. I mean, I see what lies ahead for them, the suffering and the sickness. I see them writhing in agony, hear them screaming, begging for release. They beg for John. And I grant them their wish. Only better. I get there before the wish is even made. I get there before the pain even starts.
It's a bad movie, and nobody should have to see it. And I know that's not really anybody's, it's not my purview to tell you whether to see something or whether or not. 'Cause sometimes I pick 1-star reviews, and I'm like, you should still watch.
Yeah.
This is a waste of your time.
Solace was the last movie that I watched in preparation for this, and there's a reason it was the last. I was
you were like,
okay,
I've
done.
lost the will to continue.
I was expecting it. From the plot of it, I was expecting it to be fun, like at least fun bad, but it is just, it's brutal. It's so dour. It's shot like a fucking episode of Succession for some reason.
Yeah.
There's so many pushes in this movie.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
that's the other thing. There's no like dolly-ins in this movie. It's all zooms. It's all just like, oh, here's a zoom into Anthony Hopkins. I was like, why? What are you doing?
I kept thinking I like accidentally clicked zoom on my remote or something. Like it was between this and Total Recall for which one I was gonna choose for this. It was like really tight. It's bad.
I'm toggling between two, but I think if I'm gonna go with the worst performance in also a bad movie, it has to be American Outlaws. It's so bizarre, he's so early in his career, but he's like doing his gunslinging Western accent. But it's almost like this movie is it's like a fake movie. Like, they're like, okay, bullets are hitting the ground, you're running around and rolling around, and like he's like shooting and then throwing the guns. It's like almost a spoof of a Western.
Yeah.
There's, like we mentioned before, there's one woman in this movie, and her name is Ali Larder, and she's like, dear Lord. and it's crazy because like he the war is over, and so they're going home, and he's like, oh my God, you've grown up and gotten real big. And she's like, yes, I have. It's so unsmart. It's so just like color by numbers. Like it's everything. Like, who made this movie? It's almost like, it looks like a movie that Jack Donaghy would have made on 30 Rock.
Yeah.
Like
there is, I don't know what it is, because it's certainly not Unforgiven's fault, because Unforgiven looks like a movie, but there's something about most Westerns that are made in the 90s that makes them look like commercials. And I don't know what it is.
Right.
And hey, like it's, I guess it's not just Westerns, because it also reminds me of the Disney Three Musketeers, which is a movie I like, but looks like a commercial. Doesn't look like a movie. And I don't know, I can't remember which film I blamed it on, but there's definitely something that occurred in the early 90s there. They're just like, and Westerns will look like everybody's doing Our Town.
Yeah.
It's I've never seen a movie where like the extras who are like in war are so bored. They're so bored. I was like, is this like a reenactment, like that you go see it, like the bad, like, middle
you on your
of
school
nowhere
field trip,
yeah, and like people are like, I hate being here. It just feels like no one likes being there. Scott Conn, who like is always just playing like meathead guy, which I guess like he is kind of like very muscly, whatever. But like he's like the kind of, you're not going to tell me what to do, Colin Farrell. And Colin Farrell's like, well, I'm going to be a good guy now and have my wife. Everything about this movie is just like, the movie gives him nothing to do, so like it's almost not his fault, I guess. But maybe it is the fault of Scott and Ali Larder and like the movie. Like there are a lot of things.
The rest of the CW cast.
Yeah, correct. Literally, oh my God, the Everwood guys in this movie.
Yeah, Gregory Smith. Shout out.
Yes, a tiny little Gregory Smith. So
why don't we call it the Younger James Gang?
Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. They have a whole conversation about
it. That scene goes on for like 5 minutes. I was like, chop, chop, guys. This is a 90-minute film.
Right. So
not all this money's ours. Well, no, Jesse, it was the banks. See, that's why we had to go to all the trouble of stealing it.
Look, we ought to take some of this money and give it to our neighbors in Liberty. There's a lot of people hurting up there.
Hey, none of them risk their necks for this.
Now, let's think about this. We create some goodwill with the folk hereabout and make it easier to dodge the law.
See, Frank's being smart about this.
Well, no, Jesse, just because he reads all them books and he knows all them big words don't make him smart. Yeah, it does. No, it don't, Bob. Stay out of this.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to go with that, even though I will say I have very like strong feelings about Miami Vice. Where
I was waiting for you. I was like, he's gonna do the Miami Vice. You know what? If you feel it, because I don't really like his performance in Miami Vice either.
Truth.
His performance, like, yeah, he's done like skis ball. This movie wants him to do both. It wants him to be like slime ball with the hair, and like, you know, this is also another movie where it's like cops are bad, but the good cops are good cops, and like, I don't even think like him and Gongli are obviously very attractive, but I don't even think like, I'm like, why? You just met this person and you were also working for the cartel. Like, this makes no fucking sense.
I will disagree on that front just because I do think they have a lot of heat together. But the scene where, and I'm sure, come at me, film bros, whatever. The scene where him and Jamie Foxx discuss it, and he's like, you know, she can be a bank teller, but she's with them. I was just like, why are we doing this, guys?
Right.
So why you ever then?
I'm with her 100%.
She could be a white-collar money manager. She may even be true love, but she's with them.
Like Trudy would say, I ain't playing.
Was there anything else that either of you saw that you didn't particularly like?
Alexander's crazy, so like full on and not a good time. So like, yeah, it's not Phone Booth, which is crazy and a good time.
Right. One that we didn't mention, which he's good in, but The Gentleman is a disgusting fucking movie. Like, that movie's racist as shit. I don't understand how that got like a decent critical reception of people being like, Guy Ritchie's back, and I'm like, this movie is absolutely repulsive, but like he's actually kind of fun in it. He's like the one thing that I enjoyed in it, but yeah, that movie's gross as hell.
You know what was funny is I just watched that today, and I was like, this is really racist and it's been kind of sexist, but at least no one's been raped. And then right before the end, he just has to, he's like, and sexual violence, and it's just like, Jesus Christ. Guy Ritchie, what is your deal? Yeah, Seven Psychopaths, really not my thing. Yeah. As previously mentioned, Horrible Bosses is bad, but he's good in it. But yeah, like, I don't think it's actually that bad of a career, even though there's missteps, but I don't think there wasn't a ton that I was like, unwatchable.
Even the things that like are kind of like whatever. I mean, like, I watched The Way Back and I was like, okay, well, like, I remember.
I like that movie quite a bit.
I was like, I remember when like we were trying to make Jim Sturgis thing. Like,
I was gonna say that's
Kevin and I were just talking about this.
That's my one negative thing is Jim Sturgis. Everything else in that movie is fine.
Yeah, and again, I was like, really? He nailed that fucking Russian accent.
Yeah.
I was like, you could have fooled me, girl.
The accent thing, 13 Lives, the Ron Howard movie, he is doing a British accent in it. And like, when I heard that he was playing a British guy, I was like, oh, Irish actor doing a British accent, that's going to be ugly as hell. He pulls it off really, really well.
I gotta say, I watched that with my parents. It's the perfect parent movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we were crying. It was like,
I recommended it to both of my parents. Like, the second after movie. I saw it, it's pretty good.
They have some crazy stories. Colin Farrell admitted that because they did a lot of their own swimming, and he admitted that he suffered from some pretty crazy panic attacks that he didn't let Ron Howard know about during the time, and he said he will probably reconsider doing any water stunts in the future. So
yeah, and again, also a hot dad role, I will say.
Yeah. The guy that he plays in that movie, they asked him who he wanted to play him, and he said Rowan Atkinson.
and they said, we can do better.
And Ron Howard was like, we're not making that kind of movie. And then Ron Howard was like, oh, we cast Colin Farrell, and the guy that he's playing is like, I'm not a movie buff, I don't know who that is.
Beautiful. Him and Woody Allen just hanging out.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, let's get into our 5-star reviews.
All right, Mitchell, what do you got?
It's like an obvious one, but The Lobster is my pick. I think even as like being like a huge fan of Colin Farrell before that came out, I still like wasn't sure what to expect of. I mean, like Yorgos' first English language movie, I was a big fan of Yorgos before that, but like so many non-English directors doing their first like English language movie can go, south, but he really
My precious
just, like,
baby Wong Kar-wai.
Yeah.
I know. Trust me, I've experienced that pain.
Yeah, and but he immediately, Yorgos was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do my exact thing, but just in English. And Colin Farrell is like the glue of that movie, I think, because everything around him is so outlandish, but he just plays it completely straight. He really nails that sandpaper dry humor, but you also believe him as sort of like a lumbering fool to a degree, but also a guy who Rachel Weisz, you believe, would fall in love with him and connect with him. And it's every step of that movie, he's just taking you along with, and it's a world that you could totally not be into. You could check out of it immediately, but I feel like Colin Farrell grounds it in something that is very emotionally raw and real, where you have this sympathy for him in both sections of the movie, I think. And yeah, it's such a tricky balance to pull off, and he pulls it off masterfully. I love that I agree with you guys that Killing of a Sacred Deer is a little bit of a step down, but just because The Lobster is so great, and I would love for him and Yorgos to keep doing things together. Yeah, I just think that his performance in it is tremendous. The movie itself is phenomenal. It's a boring pick, but an easy pick.
No, it's so good.
Yeah, I don't think it's a boring pick at all, because it's also my 5-star review. So I love the fact that we don't tell each other our 5-star reviews, because stuff like this happens. It's such a tremendous movie. I was perusing reviews online, and I saw somebody that was like, maybe I just didn't understand it. And part of me is like, I don't know, this is one of Yorgos's most accessible films.
Yeah.
Maybe that's on you if you didn't understand it. But for people who don't know what it's about, it is about a possible future, maybe now, who knows, but an alternate place where if you're not coupled, you get sent to a hotel where you have 45 days to find another partner. And if you're not, you get turned into an animal usually of your choice. That's it. That's the quickest way to, you're right. I want to take that pin out that I put earlier in Childish. I think this character also has a childish quality to him, but I think that's because this reality has a childish quality to it. This is a film that's about gender roles. This is a film that's about the focus that we put on coupling. This is a film about fascism. And I think it has all these interesting themes, and because of the way these characters have been placed in this reality, they do have these sort of childlike quality, or maybe I should say it's not a fully developed, just an immature quality. I think, when you said that Rachel Weisz falling for him instantly is believable, I completely agree. But I think one of the things that is easy to forget is it's not just that she sees him and falls in love with him. She sees him and she lusts after him. The first thing she says when she sees him is she had a dream that night where she was wearing an outfit that she describes, and then he takes it off and fucks her in the ass.
Hell yeah.
And I was just like,
Hell
God,
yeah, Mitchell.
God damn.
Hell yeah.
And I think there's such a great play back and forth in this movie between the silliness, because it is very silly, and that, like you said, he plays it so straight. I mean, I can't think of nothing better to tell you exactly who his character is right away in the film when he's checking into the hotel, and they're like, are you a heterosexual or a homosexual? And he's like,
women. However, I had one homosexual experience in the past, in college. Is there a bisexual option available?
No, sir, this option is no longer available since about last summer due to several operational problems. I'm afraid you have to decide right now if you want to be registered as a homosexual or a heterosexual.
I think I should be registered as a heterosexual.
You can watch the gears work in a really positive way, because you're not watching the gears work on how do I play this? You're watching the gears work on a fully fleshed out person who's stuck in this fucked up reality that may seem ridiculous, but has all these hallmarks of also our reality. And that you're able to look at these things and be like, wow, how ridiculous is this? And then you look at the stuff that's happening around you in the world and you're like, oh boy, there's stuff there.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this movie is that like this shows you this is Joni Mitchell both sides now. Okay, like the first act of this movie is the despair of being alone, and like how tragic and awful it is, and to be a complete person you need someone else. And then the second act of this movie where he he finds this person, it's all about the freedom you have when you're alone and like the beauty and like and so there are good things and bad things with both of them. And I talk about this in the Rachel Weisz episode. I'm like, this fucking movie made me think about some things. Okay, this made me reevaluate. I was like, where am I in my life?
That I get. That I don't understand just being like I don't get it. And it's like, well then do the work, because but you're right. It's brilliant in the fact that it makes you think about stuff, but it's not hitting you over the head with it. And
this movie isn't telling you like you need, like if you told someone like, oh well, if you don't find someone you're turned into a lobster or an animal, whatever. And so you would think going into this movie has a point of view that's saying like you're fucked if you don't find someone, like that's the moral of the story. But like that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that like there are judgments on both of these things, and there's freedom in both of these things, and you shouldn't have to be put into either of those boxes. You should be able to have freedom by yourself, freedom with who you love, and like all these things. It's a very layered, I don't even want to say complicated. It's not a complicated movie. It's a very thought-provoking movie.
It's so ridiculous, but it's exactly what the world is, just put like in front of you in a very direct way. And yeah, it's such a great movie because when it came out, I was single, so like I was viewing it as a single person watching it, and then a few years ago, I watched it with my partner, who I've now been with for 5 years, and like it makes you think of it in like a different kind of way too, and it's like, right, okay.
I just want to say thank God you found your partner, because I don't want to know what animal you were going to be turned into. I know it'd be so sad if Mitchell was a horse. Louis, what is your 5-star review?
Lobster was definitely up there for me, and I was like, ugh, but I watched In Bruges last night. And I said, she is on the brain, and that
it was my backup, and then I was just like, you know what Mitchell's going for? I'm going to go for it. So.
I just think, he is so at home in this character, and not because he's also he's playing an Irishman, but like
he kills people,
and he's a killer.
Sorry, Australian police.
No, but he's funny in this movie. He's emotional in this movie. He's romantic. It really is just a showcase of all of his tools, and everything about this. So the story of In Bruges is these two men are going to Bruges, which is in Belgium, and we don't know why they're there. It's revealed that they are hitmen, and they're just waiting for a call from their employer. Then it's revealed that Colin Farrell was doing his first job, to kill a priest who was a pedophile. While he kills that priest, he accidentally kills a young boy, and thus sets in motion of their employer sending them to Bruges. You find out his partner is there to kill him, essentially. And he fucking hates being in Bruges. Like an ongoing joke is he's like, I can't fucking believe we're here. Like, Jesus Christ, I hate this so much.
And the thing is, too, that they took him to Bruges because it was supposed to be like a nice final vacation. Like, show him the most beautiful place in the world before you have to kill him.
Right. And so there's a lot of humor, I think, him and which Gleason is this?
Brendan.
Yeah, so him and Brendan Gleason are so good together. They have that like kind of uncle-nephew relationship, kind of. It's very, they play off each other really well, but he's got just like, he's kind of manic, but it's also controlled, and it's like he loves doing this in this movie. He loves like shoulders up, kind of head out, and he's just like, and also Colin always looks good smoking a cigarette. Yeah, this movie again is just really, I don't know, about forgiveness, second chances, making mistakes. And like, what's hard, I mean, this is like, he's killed essentially their employers. Like, you can't kill a kid. You just, and if we don't, kill him, like, what are we saying about ourselves? We are professionals. Like, we cannot be killing kids. And the guy is like, I can't do it. He deserves a second chance. And it's really like, it's not there's no easy answers in this movie either. Like, the ending is kind of up in the air, and this idea of what is hell, purgatory, like, and he's talking about, like, is Bruges hell, maybe living as hell, living with this this guilt. I mean, he's so guilt ridden. There's that really emotional scene where, like, he just breaks down, because it's with him and he doesn't know if he's cut out to be a hitman. Ray Fiennes plays their boss, always good.
One of my favorite Ray Fiennes performance, and I know we're not here to talk about him, but "You're an inanimate fucking object" is just like, carve it into my urn.
Yeah. So rightfully so, he got nominated for a Golden Globe and won, and that's, like, I think the only award he's ever been given before.
Only major award.
Major award. But the movie, like, it's beautiful. Also, I think it's for a movie that is, like, a little bit, like, slow on the uptake. It's this beautiful, a light at first movie that turns in all sorts of different directions. I love him. I love all the, like, making fun of, they're like, oh, fucking Americans, and then the Canadians. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff in there.
Give me gun back.
You're not getting it back. You're a suicide case.
And you're trying to shoot me in the fucking head.
You're not getting that gun back.
How great day this has turned out to be. I'm suicidal. Me mate tries to kill me. Me gun gets nicked and we're still in fucking barrels.
I read that before the Golden Globes, Colin Farrell bet Brendan Gleeson that Colin Farrell would win the award. So he, like, won the bet too, which is just so ballsy to be like, I bet you I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's young cocky Colin there for you. Was there anything else that either of you saw that you particularly liked?
Yeah, I wanted to shout out just two things that we hadn't mentioned yet. We dropped on a bit The North Water, the AMC Plus series that came out last year. I watched it last year, and it's incredible stuff. It's really, like, harrowing. It's about in the mid-19th century, I think, there's, like, this Arctic expedition. That's basically the premise. And Jack O'Connell, plays the lead, who, like, he's, like, a doctor who gets onto the expedition. He's, like, I think he accidentally killed somebody. He committed some sort of crime. And so he's, like, hiding away on this expedition. And Colin Farrell is one of just, like, the whalers on the ship, who is basically, like, the, like, spawn of, say, like, the worst man you could ever imagine. He is, like, disgusting, just a horrible person, like, the pure villain of it. And it's basically, like, a battle, like, this existential battle of good versus evil, played out over 5 episodes in, like, the pure Arctic. It's, like, the furthest north, I think, furthest north or furthest south. I think furthest north that, like, any production's ever shot. Like, it looks unbearable watching it. Andrew High, the guy who did, like, Weekend and Looking, wrote and directed the whole thing. It's really impressive. It gave me, like, the kind of like, brutal, bleak, like, existential search for, like, the will to live that a lot of people got out of The Revenant, the movie, which, like, I don't like that movie at all.
No,
I didn't get that movie. Out of that movie. But so The North Water for me was what, like, The Revenant was for a lot of people. And because it's on AMC Plus, like, most people aren't even aware that it exists or, like, haven't seen it. But yeah, I would highly recommend people check that out. And just the other thing that I wanted to shout out is After Yang. Which
I was about to say
year as well.
Oh, that was the other movie this year that I left out. Oh yeah, no, he's great in it.
He's so good, and it's such a beautiful movie. Like, talk about existential, like a movie that just really makes you think about life and what we leave behind and what we still have from others that have been left behind with us, and, like, just everything about that, like, what you want from your loved ones and what you want to give to your loved ones. It's such a beautiful movie, and the fact that came out the same exact weekend as The Batman is, like, the perfect, like, nexus of, like, what Colin Farrell is at this point in his career.
Range.
I do also want to, I reiterate Roman J. Israel Esquire. It's not good. It's not a huge role. He is, very much supporting. But yeah, he's so good in it. Denzel's so good in it. It's really worth your time. I know you weren't the world's biggest fan, but Undine, I really like watching, like, lovelorn, like, just sad dad, like, just
he's
want to
really well cast in it. Yeah. Like, he's very, very well cast in that, I think.
My trash picks for fun is Daredevil and Phone Booth.
Phone Booth, baby. Let's go. Phone Booth, The Recruit. SWAT, all great movies. Everybody check them out.
All right, let's get into our fast forward.
We talked about like he's having a year currently.
Yes.
I don't know if Mitchell, like this was like even on your brain, but I was like 13 Lives came out this week. The Batman came out like this year. So did After Yang. There's a lot going on with this guy.
And I mean, he still has the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes.
A huge year. Jesus, 4 big movies.
Yeah. And so like he's not resting on his laurels. You know, he still has other things up ahead. There's the Batman TV show, the Penguin spinoff. Yeah, I don't really know why.
Who needs it?
I think the craziest thing that he's scheduled to do that I'm excited for is he's signed up for the new Todd Solondz movie. And it's,
oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's him and Rachel Weisz again.
Beautiful.
And it's about an 11-year-old boy scheming to reshape his mother's love life to disastrous consequences. That's the polite way of putting it. I've read another review of it that says, like, it's about a boy who's in love with his mother who's decided to kill his father so they can get closer. And... So very Oedipus, very
okay. Edible.
I mean, I'm excited for that stuff. I love that he's still doing that stuff. That he, and like I said, that thing that he did with Hugh Grant, where he's like, I'll still do these like scripts that are that are nothing as long as it gets money for my kids, and then I'm gonna go off and do these things. At the risk of being pretentious, that are art or are about acting and me entertaining people, and I think I feel like we keep bringing her up, but I think back to our Rachel Weisz episode, and I think to myself, we asked that question. There's some people who get into acting to act, and some people who get into acting to be movie stars, and Rachel Weisz is very much a person that's an actor. I think Colin Farrell's there too. I think if all you know about Colin Farrell is the early part of his career, the tabloid part of his career, the drug part of his career, the 1,000 girlfriends part of his career, yeah, that looks bad. But that was also literally a 3-year period.
Right. But also like those movies, like Hollywood was putting him in these like movies where it's like soldiers, and they're all the same. They're all the same, like Hearts War, like all those movie roles are like, it's just him being, and I wanted to say this, like, I think doing this episode, I was like, wow, what a career, like amazing to get to do all this stuff. And then I realized, I was like, unfortunately, I think Colin Farrell has had this amazing career because he is a hot, white, straight guy.
I was exactly going to bring this up too, yeah.
Because the opportunities he's had are incredible. To be able to do the amount of flops he's done and to be able to do, shitty, kind of popcorn TBS police movies, and then also be able to do The Lobster and like all those other indie flicks, and be chaotic bisexuals in movies. Like, like Viola Davis is not getting those opportunities.
Somebody like Derek Luke is somebody who like did like Antoine Fisher and then like Catch a Fire, where like they were trying to like make him happen, and like the movies just weren't like going huge, and then he just kind of fizzled out a bit. And he's a fantastic actor, but yeah, it was definitely like an idea. A thought that I had in my mind too when just like thinking about this episode, and just my appreciation for his whole arc, and the fact that he like had kind of this stumbling first like 10 years of his career of trying to figure it out, that like obviously he can't help the privilege that he has, but like if he wasn't a very attractive straight white guy, like he would not have the career he has. He would not have gotten the chances that he got.
You're absolutely right. There are advantages that are very much afforded to him because of his race and because of his sex.
I will say, like, he is an excellent actor, and he deserves all, like, I don't think that there are too many movies that we saw where he's like phoning it in or not delivering what he was hired to do. I thought of it because I saw 13 Lives, and I was like, these fucking Thai actors are incredible.
Yeah.
Like, they're like mostly kind of peppered around reacting to everything that's happening. Yeah. And I was like, and I was like, these fucking Thai guys are just as hot as he is. And they are, like, don't have any of the opportunities. It needs to be said, not everyone gets the Colin Farrell treatment. And I'm just saying it because I'm also happy that he fucking deserves it. Because if he was a fucking hack, I'd be very mad. But he is not. He's very good.
And there are those, and sometimes they get weeded out, and sometimes they do not.
Sometimes they do not.
Is there anything else that either of you would like to see him do that he either hasn't done or hasn't done in a while that you sort of miss?
So this is kind of in like thinking about like what I would like him to do. It's an interesting topic for him because it is like he's kind of doing it, right? Like he's really just hitting, you know, all of the points. But the thing that I think that I would really like him to do speaks more to a thing that just doesn't really exist that much anymore, which is like I would just love like a straight down the line rom-com with him. Like he is so funny, he's so charming, like in interviews and everything he has so much charisma, and it's just like really, as we spoke about, like he's got this romantic side to him that really comes out. I would love Bright Wall Dark Room did like a Twitter like prompt recently of like who would you want to see in a rom-com, and like my first thought was Colin Farrell and Michelle Yeoh. Like doing them together in a rom-com would be phenomenal.
I think he like does bumbling guy really well. Like I'm hot, but it's like hard for me to like exist. I think you're right. I think he's always good doing comedy. I also think he's just really good being physical, you know. And like we talked about a lot of the movies where he's like still in, he's got this inner turmoil, right? Because he's always furrowed and brooding. But also when he gets to be physical, it's really fun to watch. And like whether it's physical comedy like Horrible Bosses or, you know, putting on all that makeup to become the Penguin, like he gets to really like, I don't know, use his body, and it's not just like, here I am shirtless for no reason because I'm hot. He really gets to play. And so I think like doing more big comedy or rom-com stuff would be great.
I'm going to steal a cue from him and say, and of course, this interview I saw with him, he had just wrapped Miss Julie, and he's like, you know, I've just done 4 really heavy dramas. I called my agent. I was like, can you find me a John Wick? And he still hasn't done anything like that. And like he said, like an action movie, but with like a really singular stylistic viewpoint. I would love to see that. I would love to see him get involved in something like that. I don't need to see him pop up in a Marvel movie. I think he's sort of already done his time. But I think having him show up in the Batman was sort of the best way to do that, which is under makeup, letting him bring out the character-y side of Colin Farrell.
And he's like not even like the main villain of it.
Right.
Like, he's like a supporting like villain. Like it was just really smart casting there.
But like I don't need him to show up as like, you know, like Crimson Dynamo and Iron Man or something.
Well, that reminds me of another, like Halle Berry, I think is a very good parallel. Like she has,
that's a great, won
an Oscar, has done a couple of like superhero things, but like not
just won an Oscar, won the Oscar to date, the only black woman Oscar for Best Actress.
Yeah, they're around the same age, like, but she now is mostly like doing like tip spots for like, you know, oh, that's Halle Berry, but like she has had such more limited opportunities. Like, where's Halle Berry's Lobster? Okay, how about that?
That would be rad. Colin Farrell and Halle Berry in a rom-com. I would watch.
Oh my god!
I'd watch the hell out of that.
Hello,
Jesus! I have to go be alone. But yeah, I think that really wraps up Colin. I think he's an incredible actor. I was telling Mitchell before we even started this, I don't think I gave him enough credit ever. Because I thought of him as like, you know, he's like an actor guy, but no, he's like a capital A actor guy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm really happy you brought him to the table. But Mitchell, now we get to talk about you. This is your time to plug anything that you want, anything that you've been working on, the 1 billion projects I know that you're involved in.
I've been working on some stuff. My day job is a senior editor at Letterboxd, so our editorial platform over there, Journal. Pretty much anything that goes out, I've got my hands on in like one way or another. It's a lot of cool stuff going on over there. I occasionally do writing myself over there. I just interviewed Aubrey Plaza, which is up now, which was a really dope interview. I was really happy about that. I also interviewed Ed Harris, which is coming out like next week sometime. So
The Way Back, starring Ed Harris.
we talked. It was all about The Way Back. I said, "Hey, buddy, I'm doing a podcast on Colin Farrell. Give me 30 minutes of your thoughts on him, please." That's all we're here for. But yeah, so that I freelance around at like the Film Stage, Paste Magazine and stuff. I have a piece, when we're recording this, I have a piece coming out tomorrow at Paste on Light Sleeper, the Paul Schrader, Willem Dafoe movie. That's like one of my favorite movies, so check that out.
Very cool.
Everybody just be jealous of Mitchell. They've got stuff going on.
Verified on Twitter, I got made that happen.
Well,
that.
I will see myself out, I guess.
It's honestly the dumbest thing that they've ever done. Like, I have no idea why that happened. I was just like, let me just throw this out there and see what happens.
He said, my good friend Aubrey Plaza says I should be verified.
When it happened, I texted my partner and I was like, yo, you're not going to believe what the fuck just happened.
I'm a blue check mark, and I'm sorry we can't date anymore. This is a very lobster situation. You're below my status.
I am Miss Julie. You are but my valet.
Take the money and go to the barn. What a weird reference. But yeah, if you want to contact us on this show, who are doing some stuff too, you can always find us on Twitter at The Mixed Reviews.
Or on Facebook, just type in The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to email us, you can email us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're on Instagram at _mixed_reviews.
And if you want to listen to our back catalog of episodes, including, as you've been doing with this episode, you can find us on a plethora of podcast apps. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, Audible. And if you do listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please go there, leave us a 5-star rating. Yes, please, 5-star, and write us a little review. It helps other people find us, gets us in the mix of the algorithm, and we grow our audience that way.
It's just like phone booth, okay? We're all connected, and sometimes it's bad, okay? So think about that. In 2002, it would have been crazy, okay?
But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Mitchell, for coming on. You were
thank you,
so
Mitchell.
great.
Thank you guys both so much. It was such a blast.
And we will be back in 2 weeks with a brand new subject.
See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I've been holding on to my past too long, drown out my sorrows in all night honky tonks because I'm gone. My mind's all gone. I've been wasting too much time. I'm in a big hurry.